Welcome to Late Reviews. My name is Arvid, and I spend much of my spare time watching movies. Good ones and bad ones. A lot of them are bad, to be honest. And that's why I'll give you my recommendations for which movies to stay away from and which ones you can freely entertain yourself with. Of course, this is just my opinion about these films. Feel free to disagree. Today will be a very short episode, as I will cover not only a very small franchise of 4 movies, but also a franchise where there actually isn't that much to say about each individual movie. It's pretty much the same movie, just told 4 times. But that being said, I think actually it deserves some credit because it's a franchise most people are not that familiar with. Maybe people have heard about the first movie, but not, and maybe they're also the remake, but not the second and third movie. And that's why I wanted to see them all and to give you my take. So, The Stepfather is from 1987, and it's quite a basic mid-budget, mid to low-budget horror film, horror thriller, I should say, about a mentally ill man trying to find the perfect family, but always seems to fail, leading him to brutally murder the family he tried to establish, and then move on to another pastor trying to find another family or another woman with a child, and then have a family with her instead. And this cycle repeats. That's why we have several movies, but it also seems to already have probably. Actually, with the first film here, it might have only happened once. It seems it has only happened once, or if it has happened before, it's so far back in time that it's not really relevant to the story. So the movie opens quite nicely with him looking roughed up, a bit bloody, looking in the mirror, putting on, shaving, getting an entirely different look, and then walking out into this hallway that is hilariously foggy. I don't know if it was the quality of the version I had, but this has one of those 80s fog scenarios that really doesn't make sense because it's indoor, but yeah, it's really foggy indoors in this house. And then he goes out, and as he leaves the house, you realize that the family is brutally murdered, and it actually looks quite scary. It's a really, really good image. It's a very, very nice way to open it. He also has this tone, this song he sings to himself, he hums to himself. That is like his signature song, and that actually is chilling enough to work quite well. And then that's how the movie opens. And then the next thing we see is some months later, where he has met a new woman with a new child, this time a teenage daughter, and they already have a relationship. You don't see how it begins, just see that there's already a relationship here. And the main plot here on out is that the brother of his ex-wife, the wife he killed in the opening of the movie, tries to track down her murderer, and of course looks for her husband, because by this point it's her ex-husband, to figure out what has happened, because this ex-husband didn't just move town, he moved state. I mean, he fled quite far away as he could to this is a Seattle-based movie, which is not that common you see that, and that's neat. It doesn't really do anything for the series. It makes sense to bring it up because he does move around quite a bit. Eventually, a newspaper article makes it to this area that there had been this brutal slaying of this other woman, so I guess it was not that far back. Otherwise, it doesn't really make sense that it's in the newspapers. And some things in this movie are not that well established because enough time has happened for that woman to have been killed and for him to start a new relationship, but also so little time has passed that it's still in the newspaper. Anyway, I think this is just something you have to buy. I don't know if they have a good excuse in the film. Don't think there is a good excuse. I think there is an excuse they can try and pull off, but I don't know. But the point is that the teenage daughter sees this article. She already has a strained relationship with this man. She doesn't really trust our protagonist/antagonist. So reading this article, she gets suspicious that it might be him. In the meantime, she has a rough time at school and is therefore seeing the school psychiatrist, who then becomes suspicious also about our killer. I think his name is Terry, original name. I mean, of course, he always takes on different identities, so I think he's called Terry in this film. So Terry works for a real estate agency, and the psychiatrist then posing as a potential buyer for a house asks for a viewing of the house and then starts asking Terry a lot of personal questions, trying to see if he really is who he is. But he asks 2 personal questions, so Terry realizes there's something is wrong here probably thinking he is an undercover cop, not knowing that he's the psychiatrist, and decides to kill him in this house, covering up the murder. That's actually quite a good scene. This is a very memorable scene for me. The movie doesn't have that memorable scenes. I've actually forgotten most of what I originally watched it a long time ago, or a year ago, and then I went back and rewatched it. I've forgotten most of it. I just remember some scenes being quite memorable. This is one of them. And it ultimately ends with him messing up because he's trying to. Then he realizes that this family will not work for him, so he's already preparing to move on in his way of moving on. Divorce by knife, not the best way to handle your marriage problems. So he's already courting a new woman, a new family, trying to establish, trying to move on. And his current wife, catching up, and he then realizes, no, and then he slips up, he confuses two names, and realizing his mistake, he turns full murderous rage. And that leads us to the climax, no, sorry, not the climax, the ending of the film. And I would say this is mostly a boring film, not too much to keep you entertained. Aside from, some of the suspense, there's really not too much going on. On paper, there actually is a lot of suspense and thrill going on with all these different actors catching on that something is wrong with this guy. But in actuality, it's just a bit boring. I think it should keep you engaged, but it's not the most amazing film. But the ending is really brutal, or at least it feels really fulfilling. Like the whole movie has built up to this culmination, and it works. It seems like a very fatal ending for our protagonist slash antagonist. But of course, there's a sequel. But I would say this is a decent film, but maybe actually the sequel is better. So Stepfather 2 from 89, so 2 years later, with our protagonist slash antagonist, I'll just keep calling him Terry. I'll drop in a note here if I'm mistaken. But he wakes up in a mental institution with a big nasty scar. So even though, it seemed like he had a very fatal ending in the first film, he survived his injuries and is now locked up. And the first 10 or so minutes of the movie is about him planning his escape. Already in the first movie, we have seen how he has a thing for miniature models, model houses especially. He wants his model family, so it's kind of just put in stone that this guy just wants to build a model that is unrealistic, it's perfect, unrealistically perfect, and when it doesn't work, he can't handle it. So he spends all this time in prison with his doctor or psychiatrist there who tries to treat him and shows him the process of this model he's building in prison or in the mental institution. Only that he's actually building this model as a means to escape, as he uses the husband or this figurine of a man to hide a blade. Well, it's not really a blade. It's like not a pincer. It's a stepping thing, a shank. He uses it to hide a shank. Shanks the psychiatrist, and I don't know, man. For a mental institution, the security is really lax. It seems like it only has 2 security guards, and he takes out one of them, and the other one isn't really in the room. So who cares? So it's very easy. He escapes the mental institution. Sure, why not? The movie has to happen. He has to get out. So that's how they did it. Is it spectacular? No. Do we get him humming his signature melody? Yeah, so it's fine. Sure, just, for an opening, it's not the worst. This movie has a larger killing spree. This actually borders what could be considered a slasher, only I would not really call it that. But compared to the first one, this definitely is more of a slasher. And he assumes a new identity, of course, this time settling in Los Angeles. And pretending to be a psychiatrist, that's quite quirky. Mentally ill person escapes a mental hospital and is a psychiatrist. And it's because, from what I gathered, he actually assumes the identity of the guy he killed, the doctor he killed. That's a bit risky, isn't it? That's something people could look up, I would think, right? That is, I don't know, maybe the 80s were different for that. So yes, in this town, in Los Angeles, he starts helping this group of women with their problems, and one of them is Forgot her name. Quite decent actress in a lot of movies, especially more B roles in especially the 80s. I don't always like her popping out on screen, and I also feel like I've seen the kid before, but I couldn't really tell from where. So, a decent family. The family is probably more interesting than the one in the first film, and she's a real estate agent, at least from what I gathered. So that's fun, turning the table on their head, turning the tables are turning to tables. The tables used to be something else, but they have turned into tables. Um, Fudge. English language, help me out here. Anyway, so yes, of course, things start to go wrong because the real estate lady he tries to get with, her ex-husband turns up, wants her back. So he, of course, kills him, covers up the killing. The friend of the lady gets suspicious and looks up the doctor, looks up the psychiatrist, and it turns out, he's an African American, so obviously he is, and he starts asking questions, confronts him. He gets out of it by saying, "Hey, let me tell. It's not his wife yet, but they're engaged. So, I'm getting engaged with this woman. Let me just tell her this thing myself. It's my responsibility. Yada yada." And she buys it, not thinking anything too sinister of it. Big mistake. He shows up, kills her. Yeah, that's what happens. He kills her. I should say again, this movie is again the mother being a bit naive, and the child this time, the son, who's not a teenager, he's an adolescent, or like maybe he's 11 years old ish, who gets suspicious and does a lot of the digging. But what ends up being his undoing is that although when going over to kill this woman who confronted him, he makes it look like a suicide, but he has a brand of wine there. And also he's whistling a song overheard by a neighbor who's blind, but he's overheard by him, and putting, well, two and two and two together after lady protagonist sees the same type of wine at the wedding ceremony. She confronts the guy, the bad dude, Terry, prompting him to, try and lock them up in a closet and basically trying to kill them because that's now what he has to do. But they are at this wedding ceremony, not really in the church room yet, but still in the building. They resist, seemingly killing him. So this basically the ending is again a nice one. It's not as memorable as the first one, but seeing bloodied people and a showdown in a wedding ceremony is quite neat. And that's actually also another scene I remember from this series. I remember it being much better than it is, but overall, I actually think that this film is quite enjoyable. It's again not a masterpiece. It's nothing too special, but for a thriller horror with some okay effects and a lot of suspense and some boring moments and some stupid moments, it's fine. It's definitely serviceable. So Stepfather 3 is from 1992, so it was made 3 years after the second one. And some of the plot points are a bit repetitive because it opens with him escaping from the same mental institution, only you don't see it happen, which I'm actually thankful for. I mean, as stupid as it was in the second film, or rather how as easy it was, thereby making it stupid, I don't need to see that again. And this time he tracks down a back alley plastic surgeon who changes his face. And I think this is a very neat way of having a continuity in a movie where you couldn't really afford to have the same actor cast in the role, or maybe the actor didn't want to play in the third movie. So having to actually be a direct sequel while also changing the main protagonist antagonist, I think this is a very clever way of doing it. Especially because it fits with the movie. I mean, he really shouldn't be recognized. So yes, he has his face changed, kills the surgeon afterwards. I mean, that plastic surgeon is a complete dick, so he kind of has it coming. That scene, that whole opening is filmed with this very 90s, early 90s blue light. It's kind of ugly, but also not too ugly. And the way the effects for when he kills the surgeon those are okay. And then they fast forward to Deer View in California. So this one also takes place in California. This time we didn't care to go that far away. I guess it's just cheaper to shoot things in California. You don't. This movie actually is doing a good job because at this point you don't know what he looks like. Because you actually don't see him after he takes the wraps off his face. So the first 20 or so minutes, 15-20 minutes go with you trying to figure out who might be him, because it opens up with two men being the potential culprit, or even a third one if you think it might not be one of the obvious choices. So there's this bunny, there's a newcomer to town who is trying to train for an Easter event. He sees this nice woman he wants to dance with, but as he dances with her, another more cocky guy takes over. He's a bit of an asshole, and she also obviously has. It seems like they have a history, and it turns out they do. That it's the ex-husband, fairly possessive ex-husband, I would say, of that woman. But he continues the newcomer, who also looks younger. He looks much younger than the antagonist for the other movies, because I can already spoil it. That is the bad guy. The newcomer is the one in the bodysuit, the one who looks more innocent, who is more gentlemanly, and who actually looks again, younger than his first in the first two movies. He befriends the family, tries to really get the young son to like him. He tries to get the ex-boyfriend or ex-husband out of the family's life, and very quickly on, he just straight up kills him and buries him in the flower bed he's making. So that flower bed, after the flowers have been planted, is shown in multiple scenes, which I found was quite neat. So quite early off, we have a kill, and it's quite decent. Terry takes over the family. He becomes a new father, but he's a very controlling man. Really doesn't like the son of the woman. The son is in a wheelchair, but the doctors say that now we have to find out who is the next possible protagonist. Well, protagonist, antagonist, how is this mystery? Who's going to track down the murderer, basically? His balls, and there's a very, there are quite a few freak out scenes in this movie that are a bit memorable, that are quite good from Terry's side. And because of this behavior, of course, the son is not happy with him, and he also tries to get away to this, I think it's a boarding school of sorts, because he's into computers, so it's like this place he can learn more about computers. And much of this movie is about that boy trying to figure out the mystery. So he sees that there has been this person involved in multiple slayings of families who has now again escaped a mental institution, and he then, of course, the picture they have of him is not the same because of the reconstruction, but as this movie progresses, he uses computer technology to try and compare the photos. And the more technology he gets access to and the more work he puts in, the more he realizes that it might be the same person. So much of the movie is actually him trying to get this kind of evidence and get the support of his best friend, which is a local priest. He's very reluctant to believe him, but in the end he realizes if I cannot make this boy shut up, then I'll just prove it's not him. I'll play along. Because he also cares about the boy, but he thinks it's stupid to go after a man like this. So they hatch this plot to get some DNA from the man by having him touch some cutlery. Only it ends horribly, as the man he gets killed. Sorry, I don't know why I'm stretching this as much. He gets killed in an okay scene, makes it look like a car crash. Of course, the son is suspicious. Something might have happened. He feels alone, like the only possible way out was just killed off, and now he is afraid of what will happen next. And he should be, because as we saw in the other movie, in the first film, that Terry is already wooing a new woman with a new child to become the next family, because this family will not work, because the son is just such a bad son, and the wife stops. There's also a lot of problems with the wife, because she doesn't like the way that Terry's treating the son and treating her. So he's already preparing to murder them. And it's revealed slowly in some of the same ways that he messes some names, confuses some names. And also the wife he's being spotted with that woman by the man he works for, which is, I think it's gardening or this kind of wood chopping business or whatever. Ends up killing him. He doesn't put him in the wood chipper. This is a movie with Chekhov's wood chipper, which is probably the first time I've seen a Chekhov's wood chipper. It's been a long time since I saw Fargo. I don't know if it's a Chekhov's wood chipper or if it's just a wood chipper in that film. Anyway, so that's what's going on. He has to balance these families. He can't kill them yet, but he also is trying to establish the life of the new family. And it pretty much goes as you would expect. He ends up trying to murder the new wife first because she catches on to him. He wants her. She wants him to marry her straight away. She can't wait anymore. Then he messes up the name, so he tries to kill her in the gardening area. And his current wife catches on to something might be wrong is wrong. So she goes there to confront him, only to see that he tried to kill this other woman. Who's not dead yet. There's this struggle. It's quite nice. The kid, of course, learns to walk for whatever reason, and the movie ends with Chekhov's wood chipper coming to fruition, killing the stepfather once and for all, because this is a wound he can't survive. I mean, he's turned into minced meat. So this is one of those final movies. Like, I kind of wish that had done this to more movies, where those films that just keep going on, where they keep surviving all these stupid things. It's already a bit too much in this series, but at least this is the final film. And I would say all the three first movies are quite decent. I actually think I might prefer the third one. Both the first and second one are decent. The third one is just quite. I think it's more watchable. It's much less boring. The thrills are better. There's more suspense in it. The ending is much weaker, though. The ending of the first film is definitely the best of the endings. So I think I could give all three first movies a low-key recommendation. It's not something you have to go out and see right away, and I don't think I'll ever go back and watch them. But I can give them low-key recommendations, sure. They're worth watching if you're running out of 80s, early 90s horror, thriller, murder movies that have a hook like this film. Its gimmick is it's a man trying to find the best family. It's a stepfather, which it's an idea I can actually get behind. I think it's a very cool premise. I really like the premise. I wish the movies were better, but the premise is good. Which brings us to the fourth movie, which is from 2009. The fourth film is a remake, and honestly, I heard very bad things about it before going in to watch it. I don't think that's fair. I think it's a below mediocre horror movie, but I would say that most modern horror movies fall into that below mediocre category. So in that sense, it's not really worse than so many other movies. It's not really worth watching, but it's not terrible. And it basically just takes many of the best ideas from the previous films and combines them into one movie. The reason why it doesn't really work is the kills are not that good. The ex-husband who gets involved and catches on to him. Honestly, I don't know. It's really not that bad. I don't want to. I can see I already talked for way too long for a 4-movie franchise. So I'm not going into a plot summary. It's pretty much what you've seen before. Only this time there are more. There are 3 children in the family, not just one, which honestly is completely underutilized because the only child with any agency is the oldest brother. The youngest brother is used because he is slightly abused by the stepfather, causing some conflicts to emerge. But that's basically it. There's a lot more family drama. And what is bad about this movie is the acting. Not that the acting was amazing in the movies, but there is especially one woman who plays the girlfriend of this teenager, of this the oldest son. And I don't know if it's her acting or if it's the direction she's given, but I really don't like her in any of her scenes. The oldest brother is not great himself, but that girl is just really annoying. That's the stereotypical way that teenagers are usually annoying in horror movies. And there's just way too much focus on their relationship, and it's just this movie wastes your time more than the other ones. A lot of unnecessary build-up and not really the ending is not that satisfactory or satisfying. It's just not special in any way. Nothing to write home about. Just not good, not terrible. Just don't really watch it. You could easily watch the first 3 movies if you have enough spare time and have run out of better movies to watch, but don't watch the remake. And I think that will be my ending remark here. I'm sorry if you wanted me to go into more depth with the remake, but it being a remake and it being so true to the other movies or so close to the other movies, I feel like it would be a waste of my breath. You can always find my reviews for it and for the other movies on my letterbox profile, The Robot Quits. I might have written more about it than I've spoken now. I don't remember. I tend to write somewhat detailed reviews of most of the movies I watch. So yeah, you can always keep tuned on what's going on there, and I think that's just how I will end it. I hope this was not a waste of your time, and that you will give this little franchise a little love. Not too much love; it doesn't deserve too much love, but a little love. It deserves a little love. An often forgotten franchise in the big scheme of things. Turning the table on their head, turning the tables are turning to tables. The tables used to be something else, but they have turned into tables. Um, Fudge.